Welcome to Talk to Me Baby, the show that believes knowing yourself and living in accordance with who you are is the biggest asset you can possess in life. I'm your host, Emily de Armas, and today's episode is so juicy because we are going to be talking about how to say no. For my chronic yesers, my people pleasers, and those who feel guilty saying no, this episode is for you. We are going to be going into some practical tips on how to actually say no, and then zooming out and looking at the bigger implication of you being able to say no in life. Because when you're able to say no, it ties into some much larger life skills. For example, you understanding and knowing yourself, and you establishing and upholding boundaries. Because when you feel safe enough to express yourself and say no, it means that not only do you know yourself, so you can actually decide, is this really a no for me or not, but you feel comfortable and confident in saying no to other people, regardless of what their reaction might be. And you can uphold boundaries for how you want to be treated and what you want to participate in. So it's very important to be able to say no in life. It's very empowering. And you will find that not only do other people respect you, but you will have this newfound sense of leadership within your own life when you are able to say no. Now, not all people who struggle with saying no are people pleasers, but I do think that there's quite a bit of overlap. And as a lifelong recovering people pleaser, I can tell you that I know all about that impulse to put your own needs, wants, and desires on the back burner and at the expense of what everybody else wants and needs, because you believe subconsciously that if you are there for everybody else and you're doing what everybody else wants you to do and you're helping everybody else, that's how you're going to receive love. And the truth is that when you say yes to other people, you are abandoning yourself unless that is a true yes that comes from your heart and comes from a desire that is authentic. When it's not, and you're just saying yes out of obligation or because you feel like you have to, that's what creates relationships where you never really feel seen or known by the people around you. So let's zoom in and let's talk about how to say no. Tip number one is not to say yes and it's not to say no. It is to buy yourself more time. Because if you're not used to saying no, that might feel like a stretch to suddenly just start saying no. So at the very least, what we can do is buy ourselves some time. So instead of just knee-jerk reaction, saying yes to things, right? When people have requests of your time, your expertise, your knowledge, your help, your presence, your energy, you can simply say, you know what, I need some time to think about it. Or I'm not sure, let me get back to you. Or I'll look into this and I'll let you know what I decide. Just buy yourself some time by not immediately saying yes and not also feeling the pressure to say no, but just to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, right? Chris Voss, who's a former FBI negotiator, wrote a book and taught a masterclass all about negotiation. And in this masterclass, he talked about how deadlines are never actually true deadlines. In very, very rare instances is a deadline an actual hard and fast deadline. And this is a man who was negotiating with people who would kidnap innocent hostages and say, well, if you don't send me the money, I'm going to kill all of them. Okay, so I think we can learn something from this man because at the end of the day, if there's a deadline and if they really want your help or they want your presence or they want whatever, that deadline most likely can be shifted or something can be worked out in order to make it happen if it is, in fact, a yes for you. So don't let other people pressure you into, well, no, but I need to know by this time and da, da, da. Because Chris Voss says the deadlines are not really a true thing in most instances. Okay. So tip 2 is ask yourself, why am I saying yes? We need to rethink and reassess our true reasons for saying yes to something. And I'll give you an example. There was a time in my business when I was offering social media services. I did this in corporate for years, and so I was just offering this as a service. And I was doing it for a while, and then I realized I don't really like doing this. I don't really want to do this. It's not really my jam. It's not something that I'm interested in. And I was telling my dad about the things that I was offering in my business. He was asking me questions, and I said, I don't want to offer social media anymore. And he said, yeah, but can't you get money from that? Can't you get paid for that? And I said, yeah, but I don't want to do it. And he kind of was just like, okay. And I think in a lot of instances in life, we have internalized this concept that life is full of things you don't feel like doing and you have to do. And to an extent, yes, absolutely, that is true. right? But it's almost like we've taken this story of people who have risen above and people who are successful and people who have accomplished things. And we've taken their stories of hustle and grit and determination and turned it into a justification for us saying yes to things that we don't really want to do and that don't actually fulfill us just because we feel like we should. And I'm going to tell you right now that should is the enemy of you being able to say no, because should just smacks of obligation and shame and other people's opinions versus what you actually really want to do and what would fulfill you truly and deeply. And especially in the business world, we feel like, well, yeah, but like, shouldn't I just do this thing even though I don't like to, because then I can hustle and I can, without realizing that sometimes we're saying yes to things that on paper make a lot of sense from a practical, logical, responsible standpoint. But in actuality, if you are feeling drained and unhappy and depressed and sad by the things that you are doing and they're not bringing you joy and they're not fun for you, then is it really worth it in the long run? I would say no, it's not worth it in the long run. And it's better for you to say no rather than saying yes to something that is only half working and at best is going to give you some small sense of I'm doing what I should do, check the box, but at worst is going to actually drain you and make you hate life. So we have been trained by society to not really think about our own needs and our own desires from a very young age. If you think about like little kids, sometimes when they go to a party and it's like, oh my God, say hi to your Thea, give your Thea a kiss. And the kid's like, I don't want to. And then that kid is shamed for not wanting to cooperate and not wanting to do things. And so we're taught from a young age that our needs don't matter and that our wants don't matter. And if you're not careful, as you get older, you can find yourself saying yes to things that you don't really want to say yes to. So tip number 2 is really about identifying, why am I saying yes to this? Is it because I feel obligated to? Is it because I'm afraid of disappointing this person? Is it because I have lack mentality going on and I'm afraid by saying no that it's going to block me from future opportunities? Assess why it is that you feel the need to say yes and ask yourself, is this a true yes for me or not? Because if it is, it's going to feel exciting. It's going to feel exhilarating. It's going to feel like you want to do this thing. You're leaning in physically. And if you need some help identifying how you really feel about it, go back to episode 1 of this podcast. We talked about the body pendulum that will help give you an accurate representation of, is it really a yes or no in my body? Okay. My third tip for you is now how to actually say no. And I recommend that you script things out. Don't leave things to chance. Don't wait until you're cornered. Script out how are you going to say no and be proactive about it. The longer that you wait to give somebody a response, especially if they're waiting on you, then the harder it is to say no and you build it up in your mind. So script out, this is how I'm going to say no. And do not feel the need to give backstory or context for your no, because that's where you get into trouble. When you're like, well, no, I can't because I promised my neighbor that I was going to feed their fish. And then by the time I have to drive over there, then I'm not going to have time to come back and then help you set up. And so I can't do it, because then it sounds like you want to say yes, but you have obstacles in the way, like your neighbor's fish. And then they will help you eliminate those obstacles and they will help you find solutions so that you can say yes when you didn't want to say yes in the first place. So don't give explanation. Don't give a dissertation. Don't feel like you have to justify why you are saying no, and do not feel like you need a permission slip. Nope, sorry, that's not going to work for me. No, I'm not available that day. No, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to. Punto. The end. No embellishment, no rationalizing it. Just say no and write out what you're going to say so that you're not caught off guard. Now, the next tip feeds into this, because when you say no, you are likely going to get a reaction back. So tip number 4 for you is let them react. It is natural that they are going to have a reaction, especially if they are used to you saying yes and now you're suddenly saying no. It is very normal and reasonable that they would notice that. If you're always used to going home in one direction, right? People are driving the same route to get home, and then suddenly somebody takes a different route and you're like, oh, why are we going this way? You would notice it, right? Something that's outside of the norm, you're going to notice it. And so just let them react and hold steady during that period of discomfort. In my experience, the times that I've said no and I've been really afraid of the reaction have usually gone better than how I imagined it in my head. Usually the person is understanding. usually the person just wants an answer, yes or no. Can you help me? Can you do this thing? Can you be here? Can you go here? It's a little trickier when we're saying no to family or friends. We feel like there's more at stake. But generally speaking, when you say no, it's usually not as bad as you actually think it is. And it can also be empowering to really stick to your guns. And in the moment, it might suck and it might feel really uncomfortable. But later on, you can be proud of yourself knowing that you said no, even though somebody really wanted you to say yes. Now, it's not lost on me that sometimes in life we have to say yes to things because saying yes is like the path of least resistance. It's going to be worse for us. The consequences will be worse. It's going to be more of a pain if we say no than if we just say yes. But even in those instances, I want to offer you a different perspective because by voicing your opinions and your desires and saying no, I don't want that, or that doesn't work to me, it might open the door for a negotiation or discussion that leads to a much better solution for everybody. So let's do an example. Let's say that your family is planning some kind of like reunion and everybody wants to meet on the West Coast. And you're like, no, that's not going to work for me. I don't want to meet on the West Coast. And you're the only one who doesn't want to go out to the West Coast. Everybody else is like, oh my God, you're being such a pain. Everybody's on board. You're the only one that's being a hassle. But if you present other options, you might end up discovering some little town in Michigan and everybody goes to Michigan for the reunion and it's like the best vacation ever and you find the best vacation house and then all of a sudden now this is going to be the future spot forevermore because everybody had such a wonderful time. You don't know what's possible. So I wouldn't be afraid to say no even in instances like that if it's true for you and your voice and your opinion because you might end up with an alternative that actually works out better for everybody involved and it's a win-win. And that's another thing. When you are saying no, it doesn't mean I win, they lose. It is a win-win because if you are saying no and it is a genuine no, that means that now there's an opportunity for somebody else to say yes who really wants that thing or wants to help. And you've probably experienced in your life when you ask somebody for help and they help you, but it's very begrudging. And you can just tell like they don't want to be there. They don't want to be doing whatever it is that they're doing to help you. And then you feel guilty. You feel bad that you're making them do something. It's nice when people are on the same page and you saying no allows the space for that to happen. So now let's zoom out. Let's talk about why it's so important for us to be able to say no. And the first thing I think is we have to assess, why do I have a hard time saying no? What is the fear at the basis of me wanting to say yes? Is it because I'm afraid that I'm going to be rejected? Am I afraid of their reaction? Am I afraid that if I say no to this opportunity, I'm never going to get another opportunity again? Do I have FOMO? What is at the basis of me having a hard time with saying no? Sometimes it's hard to say no because it seems like everybody else is going along with this. And even though for you it doesn't feel right, you feel this sense of obligation or peer pressure to say yes to things. That's why it's so important for you to listen to your inner voice, because if not, then you're always going to be in this state of second guessing yourself and saying yes to things that may not actually be a true yes for you. So we need to understand, first of all, why is it that I'm saying yes, or why do I feel a struggle in saying no, and address that. Sometimes this has to do with scarcity mindset. We feel like if we say no, then we're never going to get another opportunity. And so I need to say yes to it. When I first started doing writing projects, I was like, I'll write anything. You need me to write the back of the cereal box? I'll write it. You want me to write a Facebook ad? I'll write it. Oh, an email? Yeah, I can do that too. I can write anything for you. A letter to your lover? Absolutely. I'll write it. You need a greeting card? Let's go. I was open to writing anything because I wanted the experience and I wanted to get paid for writing. But at some point that started to backfire because I would wonder, why don't I get projects with these types of clients? Or why don't I get this kind of opportunity? And it was because I was shooting myself in the foot by saying yes to all these things without actually discerning, do I really want this or not? Does this actually work for me? Which one of these types of projects do I prefer? And so I think it's good to have a check-in with yourself. Why am I saying yes? And where is that yes actually coming from? And what's at the root of it? For a lot of us, we are afraid of saying no to people, especially people we love, because we feel like we're going to disappoint them. We're going to let them down. They're going to think less of us. At an unconscious level, it's about feeling that you are going to be rejected in some major way and you're not going to be able to receive love. But the problem is that when you've trained yourself, if you're a people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser like me, when you've trained yourself that other people's love comes from you doing what they want you to do and you saying yes, then you're never actually really experiencing a true sense of a relationship on an even playing field and on steady footing, because your validation is now coming from other people. And other people, I don't know if you've noticed, they got things going on. And so other people are actually not a good source of steady love for you. The only steady love that can come to you is your own relationship with your soul, your own relationship with the divine, whatever you want to call that, however that factors into your life. Only you can actually provide a love for yourself that is steady. Nobody else can. And when you're saying yes to things just because you're trying to win other people's love, even subconsciously, you're always going to leave feeling empty because it's not truly fulfilling and you're looking for that source outside of yourself. And that doesn't work out. We know that. Doesn't work. We need to stop doing that, right? The truth is that you are lovable exactly as you are right now. You are worthy exactly as you are. You don't need to jump through hoops for people. You don't need to say yes to things that you don't want to. You can say no, and people can be upset about it, and they can still love and respect you. And in fact, when you are able to say no to things and hold those boundaries and say, you know what, this doesn't work for me, you will start to feel really empowered in your life. I remember I was trying to decide on a project and I was talking to my friend about it. And this particular friend is very good at saying no. I have learned so much from her. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I should do it or not. Like, I could make it work. And she just said, Emily, either it works for you or it doesn't. Very simple. Either it works for you or it doesn't. Because I'm the kind of person who can focus on the positive and I can find the silver lining and I can change my perspective. And even though I might not want to do this, I can find a way to make it fun for myself and make it a little bit more enjoyable. But the fact of the matter is, either it works for you or it doesn't, right? I don't have to be in this mindset of, I can make it work. Like, it's fine. It's fine. No, you deserve more than just it's fine. You deserve for it to actually work for you. And that was a huge paradigm shift for me in recognizing that I'm allowed to look at things through that lens. Either this is a true yes for me or it's a no. And it's okay. The problem is that sometimes we're actually afraid of taking responsibility, because when you've been operating from the premise that, well, I have to say yes to these projects. I have to say yes to this person. I have to say yes to this. I'm being asked. I have to do it. When you recognize that actually you have a choice, then it calls into question, well, what am I choosing? What do I really want? What do I actually want to be doing in life? Right? And then that means that now you have some tough decisions. You have to examine how you've been operating and you have to take responsibility for how you've been operating. When you're on default mode of, I just say yes to everybody and I always put myself last, then you don't have the responsibility of putting yourself first, of prioritizing yourself and what it is that you want in life and actually working towards that. And sometimes we keep ourselves stuck just because it's a little more convenient. And this is one of the sneaky ways that we do it, is by just saying yes to things that we don't really want to do, because then it's like, well, I have an excuse. I can't because I got all these things going on. And you just keep putting your own thoughts and desires on the back burner, because then it's easier than you doing something and failing, or you taking a risk and it not working out, or you having to deal with the pain and the challenge of trying something new and not being good at it and testing things out and what might happen. This is all tied up into our own self-worth and our own views of who we are. And the last thing that I'll say now in this zoom out section is that the ironic thing is that when you say yes to things that you don't really want to say yes to, you are in fact saying no to yourself. So, plot twist, you have been saying no. You've just been saying no to yourself. Ultimately, you are allowing your life to become an opportunity cost, because everything has an opportunity cost. If I'm trying to decide on where to vacation and I say yes to Italy, that means that I'm also saying no to the possibility of going to France and going to Spain and going to Japan. By saying yes to Italy, I'm saying no to all these other options. So everything in life has an opportunity cost. And when you're saying yes to other people and what they want you to be doing, you are saying no to yourself and what you could be doing with your own life. And your own life, friends, is not an opportunity cost. Your life should not be the opportunity cost of you just saying yes to other people. That's not cool. We don't need to be doing that. Okay. So next time you feel tempted to say yes to somebody and you're wondering wait, is this really a true yes for me or not? Why am I saying yes? Then we can start to shift and actually say yes to the things that matter to us. We can build stronger relationships. We will have more self respect for ourselves, and therefore others will as well. To recap, we went over 4 tips for how to say no, and we talked about why it's important to exercise the ability to say no in life and how it will serve you in the long run. Because your needs don't need to be on the back burner. I'm Emily de Armas. This has been your episode of Talk to Me Baby. I'm a copywriter, a marketer, a cat mom, as you can clearly see, currently hungry, and I will talk to you later.